Welcome back to another episode of Wrestle Capsule, where you're going to be getting your weekly dose of pro wrestling talk. And I'm your host, B. So welcome back to the show. Today, I wanted to review a recent documentary that was on TV. I just watched it today, so I'm a little late. It aired this past Sunday on A&E. You guys might know what I'm talking about. It's a wrestling documentary. It's a series, and this past episode was the story of Lex Luger. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's something to talk about. There's a lot of controversy that circulates the name Lex Luger in wrestling, like in the ring and out of the ring. So after watching, because I did watch it today, I looked up the reviews and saw how other people were seeing it, and it was, I have to say, it was a mixed reaction from wrestling fans. There are wrestling fans who were thankful to have learned more about Lex Luger and who are fans of him and appreciate his transparency, and some even felt sorry for him, which I'm one of those wrestling fans because of how tragic things happened, him being involved in it, and then even the aftermath when he got out of all that drama and all that like mess. There are still consequences to the decisions he made, the silly, stupid decisions he made when he was younger. So there's those people who were sympathetic and who appreciated the documentary for what it was. But then, of course, there's always going to be negative Nancy's who, out of the hour and 25 minutes that the documentary was on, all they have to talk about is the fact that Lex Luger deserves to be in a wheelchair because of the death of Miss Elizabeth and all the screwed up decisions that he's made in his life, as if Miss Elizabeth didn't make her own decisions, and as if Lex Luger didn't make his own decisions, and the consequences that each of them received, regardless of the fact that they did these things together to hold Lex Luger solely responsible. I feel like that's unfair. But also people were talking about, because I remember within the documentary, it was said that Vince McMahon was basically trying to make Lex Luger the next Hulk Hogan. And there were a lot of wrestling fans who were just like, he will never be the next Hulk Hogan. And like just negative stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's what you got out of it? If that's what you got out of it, then one, you're immature, and two, you dismiss the entire point of the documentary. And with wrestling fans like that, I can't even deal with people like that because they're so small-minded, and you can have your opinion about a particular wrestler, whether you like them or not, whether you like their ring work or not. Regardless of that, what you can at least do as a human being and as an adult is respect the story. You know what I'm saying? Especially of how everything that happened and where Lex Luger is today, because they actually showed it. They started when he was younger and he was in, college football, and they just told the story through, which I love, so you get a better perspective of Lex Luger's life. And it went all the way to where he is now and what he's doing with his life and how much better he is mentally and spiritually, all those things. So I feel like at least you can be respectful about that and just appreciate it for what it is, because whether wrestling fans like it or not, he was a part and still is a part of wrestling. The controversial stuff that happened in Lex Luger's life talked about the drug and alcohol addiction, talked about I believe he was in an accident where his arm, I forgot which arm it was, but like he was really freaked up, and it showed footage of him being in the hospital, and talked about how like his bones were like popping. It was really bad, and the doctors were trying to amputate it, but because because Sting was there. One thing I didn't know is that Sting was and still is a very close friend of Lex Luger. I didn't know that, and I feel like that's super awesome that went from them working together to them being very close, because throughout the documentary you see how there's this thread of friendship between Lex and Sting, and how Sting was there for him through different parts of his life, the good, the bad, and the just ugly. But overall, I really did enjoy the documentary, and I have a new respect for Lex Luger and his life and his testimony and where he is now and how he's changed. It addressed how Lex left right in the middle of Vince trying to push him as a face, and Lex Luger not really getting over with the fans. And you know how Vince is. Vince will have you lose and have you lose and have you lose, just so he can build up this anticipation of one day this wrestler is actually going to win. And not only will they win, but they'll win a championship. So, we all know how Vince McMahon writes stories. But yeah, like with him being in WWF and then Lex not renewing his contract with WWF, and then next thing you know, in 1995, he's showing up on Monday Night Nitro with WCW, and all the money and the time, the TV time, and just the time in general to push Lex Luger, only for him to leave and go back to WCW. And then with that momentum that Vince was building with Lex, WCW in WCW fashion took that momentum and made it work so that the fans would get behind Lex, and his career in WCW was huger than it was in WWF. And that was during the time where WCW was beating WWF in ratings back to back to back to back to back. Like, and that's crazy. Like, no wonder Vince was pissed. What was amazing? Well, one of the amazing things about the documentary, the story of Lex Luger, was the friendship that Sting and Lex Luger had and have. So they both started at WCW and they became close, and Sting was there for Lex Luger when he got into the accident, and he was the one that helped him get connected with a really skillful sports doctor who was able to fix his arm so he wouldn't have to get it amputated. And then he was there for him when Miss Elizabeth died. Fast forward when Lex Luger became a Christian and got saved and changed his life, Sting was the one who baptized him and then was there for him. Fast forward again when he got temporarily paralyzed from the neck down because of a spinal cord injury, and Lex Luger couldn't feed himself or walk, and Sting was there to feed him and help him. I thought that was such a beautiful thing to see for someone who they've known each other for years, and to have a friend like that who's there for you no matter what, the good times, the ugly times, the bad times, and everything in between. So that was very heartful to watch, and it's a beautiful. I didn't know that they were that close. And honestly, I can only, and I'm going to say this because I'm probably going to have people in the comments, he did this and he did that, and he did drugs, and he was the reason why Miss Elizabeth died, and this, that, and the third. I'm just like, being bad to your body does have consequences. It's only through grace that Lex Luger didn't die, and he had several instances where he was close to death. They already talked about the accident where like he almost lost his entire arm, and then from him fast forward in 2007 where he started having a pinch in his neck, and the next thing you know, from the neck down, he can't move, and he's not even able-bodied, like paralyzed. Like there's so many things that happen to him as well as consequences of, you know, him doing drugs and him taking steroids and just not being good to your body. But what I can say is from the documentary, I can see that how he was even before wrestling, when he was a football player, to where he is now, polar opposite, two different people. Lex Luger was a super narcissist and thought he was all that in a bag of potato chips. He was muscled up, his physique, his looks, like he thought his poop didn't stink, you know what I'm saying? And then fast forward to where he is now, where he's saved and he just talks differently as well. And he's a lot more humble and thankful for the fact that he didn't die, that he's not permanently paralyzed to the point where he can't, you know, he can wash himself, he can cook for himself, he can clothe himself, he can, even though he's in a wheelchair, he's still able to function and just take care of himself, because the whole thing with the being paralyzed, that was supposed to be permanent, but he was miraculously healed to the point where he's able to move his limbs to a certain extent. And it's crazy because with these different documentaries, not all of them, but with some of them, with certain wrestlers who have had a run-in with being addicted to some sort of substance. A lot of times it has been due to being in the environment of the wrestling industry. I really do believe that money can change you if you let it. The love of money is the root to all kinds of evil. Like when you are in love with money to the point where, and you have the time, you have the love of money, like money rules everything around you, and you have the time to do whatever you want, and you can do whatever you want because you have the expendable income, you will get into some ish. Like you will get into some ish, you really will. And you see that with Lex Luger's life. And it was a pastor who kind of intervened and stepped in and became like a really good counsel for him, and was kind of trying to find a way to have him go to a church. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing of church and Christianity. I consider myself a spiritual person. I'm not Christian, but I'm very much spiritual, and I believe that there is a higher power. So the whole testimony of Lex Luger getting saved after, you know, the drugs and the alcohol and the death of Miss Elizabeth, and just going to jail and his life being upside down. It is a beautiful story, a beautiful testimony, because he's come so far. Now, whether you're a Christian or you're Muslim or you consider yourself spiritual, like if you don't believe in anything, regardless of what your beliefs are, your spiritual beliefs are, just hearing Lex Luger's story, his testimony of how he came to a place of healing and now is in a place of humility and peace and happiness and fulfillment outside of wrestling and outside the dark side of the ring. When I say that this documentary I'm so glad I watched it. Like, I'm glad that I got the whole story of Lex Luger. Will Lex Luger be inducted into the Hall of Fame? I hope so. I really do. I really, really do. I feel like he deserves it. It would be good and it would make sense for Lex Luger to be inducted. Like, people make mistakes. People make mistakes, and we have to live with our mistakes when we make them. And all we can do is ask for forgiveness and forgive yourself and move forward and do better. That is all that you can do. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I know it's a little bit different. Usually I'm cracking jokes and being super, but this one had to be different. It's a lot more sensitive and it's about someone's like real life, and I wanted to be sensitive to that. So guys, if you haven't watched the WWE Legends episode with the story of Lex Luger, I highly suggest you watch it. It's on A&E website for free, so check it out. If you guys have watched the documentary, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. I'll see you guys next time. Signing out. Bye.